President Isaac Herzog has wrapped up a rare visit to the Democratic Republic of Congo. He's urging the international community to shift its gaze from what he called an obsessive focus on Israel to urgent humanitarian crises unfolding across Africa. During his stop in Kinshasa, part of a broader African tour, Herzog met with the Congolese President Félix Tshisekedi, discussing regional security, economic cooperation, and the deepening ties between Israel and Central Africa. We speak now to political commentator Kenneth Mokgatle about the significance of this visit. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Evening, peace on to the listeners of Channel Africa. Thanks for having me.
So your reading of the comment made by President Herzog when he says that there should not be an obsession about Israel, but rather look at the humanitarian crises across Africa. Does it sound more like a mind your own backyard type of comment?
Yeah, indeed. I think what he's trying to say is that African countries should exploit and use its focus on resolving its own issues, and not necessarily neglect or ignore what is happening around the world, because we know that the global world has come to be very interconnected. So there's no way that we can ignore what is happening in other regions around the world. So I think he put a lot of emphasis on what is happening in Sudan. I think in the previous 2 weeks, it has been in the news more than it has been over the years. The genocide, whether to call it genocide or not, I think that's the topic that has been discussed on what is happening there. But the decision, I think, to visit these two SADC countries, I think it's a continuation of what the state of Israel was trying to do in 2016 when its prime minister visited some East African countries. I think he visited Kenya. He also went to Ethiopia, and I think he went to Kenya to try and resuscitate, strengthen the ties between the state of Israel and those countries. So they've always viewed Africa as a very strategic region in the world to establish and strengthen relations with them, because we know that they've been alienated in the Middle East region, especially by the countries which are surrounding Israel, such as your Egypt and others. Although now through the Abraham Accords, there have been some attempts to try and strengthen or fix the relationship, to try and normalize the relations between those countries and the state of Israel.
And as you point out, you talk about the alienation, certainly when we look at relations with Africa from the African Union prism. How the global south is coagulating, or what they're coagulating about within the face of global solidarity. There are major issues that separate Israel from Africa, but there are certain countries that are obviously bucking the trend. You mentioned Kenya. So with the Democratic Republic of Congo, what specifically, if it's not the mineral resources that Israel sees the DRC as a strategic for?
Yeah, I think as I've alluded that Israel obviously needs friends. They've always needed friends, especially in the establishment of their state in 1948. That's why when Ghana, the Gold Coast, received its independence in 1958, Golda Meir, who was at the time, who was the foreign minister of Israel, went to establish relations with Ghana of Kwame Nkrumah, and they went to other countries such as Kenya, who later got their independence, to try and seek friendships there, and it has always been on their as part of the mandate of the foreign ministry or foreign policy, to try and win the hearts and the souls of African countries, and that's what they've been doing since their establishments, and they continue to do so. So it's quite obviously that they will use everything that is at their disposal to try and win African countries. So in the sense, obviously, they will go out and seek some commonalities or similarities, such as your history of obviously the abuse that the African countries have suffered from slavery, and the Jewish people have suffered from. They have suffered from in Germany there. So that's, I think, the commonalities that they may have, and the fact that geographically they might share some boundaries because they are not far from Egypt, and Egypt also is part of Egypt is part of Africa, but they share borders with Israel. So it makes Israel part of Africa, if you like. That is why they see themselves as part of Africa, and they really would like to be part of African Union, as they had been in the past, been given the observer status. So in the DRC, they have made it clear that they are eyeing the trade and investment, digital and security and military cooperation, as well as other spheres in the society where they might both have some mutual beneficial between the DRC and Israel. So we know that the DRC have been undergoing very serious security and military troubles over the years. So obviously they might need some interventions or some form of help from Israel, as we know that Israel also experiences the same over the years, as they are trying to defend their borders over the years against the Palestinians, as we know that they have been fighting, or this impasse have existed since 1948 until today.
So, how would that influence current peace talks with the DRC and Rwanda, M23, should I say, negotiations? And I'm thinking here, particularly given that they're being led by the United States, even though Israel is an ally of the United States. But the fact that Israel itself is a leader when we talk about military, security, technology, etc., does that mean we could see Israel then, come into the fore and play a role militarily?
When I saw it, because I know that Israel is very close to Rwanda, and they do have got some cooperations or partnerships in various fields. When it comes to military and security, that's where they work together. Agriculture, trade and investment, they work together a lot. So I was surprised to see them taking this offensive charm in the DRC. So for me, I think the impression that I'm having is that Israel would play the similar role that was played by Qatar, obviously to bring the two countries together and try to get a compromise or a solution to the problems of the two, in trying to resolve the problems between them. So I don't think they will take a side now, because I think they need both Rwanda and the DRC for their own cause, especially in the United Nations and in other multilateral organizations where Israel always needs vote or support, as they always need support from Africa. Many African countries which have got seat in the United Nations Security Council, as we know that the DRC from next year will be occupying or presiding over a seat, a temporary seat in the United Nations Security Council. So it means that the DRC will have some level of influence in that multilateral organization. So that is why maybe we are seeing the offensive charm by Israel, obviously, to come and lobby for a support which they always need in the United Nations, like any other country which pursue its foreign policy.
All right, thank you so much for speaking to us. Kenneth Mokgatle is a political commentator just reflecting on